Thank you for joining us today. The Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee meets this afternoon to receive testimony from the leaders of the Department of Defense's Science, Technology, and Innovation enterprise on how they are working to ensure that the United States retains its technological superiority to support defense and national security missions. I'd like to welcome our witnesses today. Dr. Peter Highnam, Deputy Director of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. Major General John George, Commanding General of the Army Combat Capabilities Development Command. Rear Admiral Lorin Selby, Chief of Naval Research, and Brigadier General Heather Pringle, Commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory. I also want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being here today and for your continued service to the nation and for your efforts to ensure that we are leveraging innovation to support our service members. As we all know, the United States is in a competition with China in all areas of technology critical to our national security. To date, our technological superiority in areas like advanced combat aircraft, missile technologies, nuclear and space technology, and land and naval power have been enough to maintain our advantage despite the ambitions and population of China. In my view, it is critical that we maintain our military superiority to continue to show the Chinese government and our competitors that starting a conflict or challenging us is not in their best interest. I believe that our technological capability is central to that aim. While innovation is what we have historically done better than anyone, technological superiority is not a natural right of our nation. It has been earned and developed over decades by the people like our witnesses and their predecessors who worked to leverage American ingenuity and innovation. People who worked to establish partnerships between the military, civilian agencies, industry, academia, and international partners to develop and deploy the weapon systems and defense capabilities that we have today. Capabilities ranging from radar to precision weapons to fifth-generation fighters to robots on the battlefield all have their roots in the science and technology enterprise that we are discussing today. It's also important to remember that our national investment in these research programs ultimately benefits not just the Department of Defense, but the broader American public as well. As we all know, DoD-supported research is now used in general society to promote economic growth and advance the nation's healthcare system and improve overall quality of life. Things like the internet, GPS, smartphones, advanced materials, and even medical advances, including some of the vaccines being used to address the COVID pandemic today. These are all products of research programs. So I hope that in this hearing we can examine how DARPA and the services are using the resources and authorities they have been given to help us win the global technological competition against adversaries like China. And I hope that the witnesses can address any challenges that they are facing in trying to achieve that goal and give us insights and recommendations on what this subcommittee can do to best support them. I'll now turn it over to Senator Ernst for any opening comments that she may have.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kelly, and congratulations on taking the gavel for emerging threats and capabilities. And I really do look forward to working together on this committee and appreciate your leadership in setting up the hearing today. For many decades, the Department of Defense has driven global research and development to create technologies that have become the backbone of our digital society. And in a more recent example, the vaccine, as Chairman Kelly had noted, and other biomedical research done at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has enabled the development of the new vaccine techniques currently being used to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of these and other important research and development activities, the United States military has enjoyed technological superiority over our adversaries for decades. Unfortunately, our adversaries have learned from our success and are investing heavily in developing and stealing capabilities like artificial intelligence, 5G, hypersonics, emerging biotechnologies, and quantum computing, and directed energy. The fiscal year 2019 National Defense Authorization Act established an independent commission to study the application of artificial intelligence to national security applications. Their final report, released in March 2021, states, "The United States has neither identified nor prioritized leadership in the technologies that are central to national competitiveness." In contrast, the Commission's report notes that China is pursuing a comprehensive technology leadership strategy. China's strategic investments in key sectors through its Made in China 2025 initiative threaten U.S. technological prowess, economic prosperity, and national security. The report goes on to note that in addition to investments in AI, China is seeking to become a world leader in quantum, 5G, and biotech, among other areas, and sees its strategies to lead in AI and each of these other technologies as mutually reinforcing. I'm concerned we're not keeping up with our competitors, and I am looking forward to hearing our witnesses talk today about the research and development activities in the defense laboratories and at DARPA and each of the service research organizations to support modernization goals of the National Defense Strategy. What can this subcommittee do to support efforts to maintain this technological superiority of our war fighters? And thank you very much to our witnesses for appearing in front of us this afternoon, and I look forward to your testimony. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. And I'll now recognize the Deputy Director of DARPA, Dr. Highnam, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Ernst, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today and for the committee's strong support of DARPA over the years. My name is Peter Highnam, and I am the Deputy Director of DARPA. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues who are representing the critical research and development functions of the United States Navy, Army, and Air Force. While we work closely with each of these service organizations, DARPA has a unique mission in both the DoD community and the broader U.S. technology ecosystem. That mission is to prevent technological surprise by making pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national security. What that means is we anticipate, create, and demonstrate technologies that are nowhere on technology roadmaps and often outside most people's imaginations. For over 60 years, in partnership with innovators inside and outside government, DARPA has repeatedly delivered on our mission. We transformed revolutionary concepts and seeming impossibilities into practical capabilities. Examples of those capabilities include stealth technology, precision-guided weapons, and unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as icons of modern society, such as the internet, automated voice recognition and language translation, and GPS receivers small enough to embed in nearly any consumer device. Technologies like these provide more options for our nation's leaders and the military services. Today, with increasingly complex challenges in a rapidly changing world, DARPA's role has never been more vital. At DARPA, we think not just about scientific and engineering innovation, but also about the innovation ecosystem. That ecosystem includes many overlapping and adjacent communities in academia, industry, and partnerships across the federal government. It includes everything from fundamental research to global-scale systems of systems. It includes innovation not only in technology, but in processes and transition strategies as well. And most importantly, it includes a constantly changing crew of DARPA program managers who come from and will return to that ecosystem, who seek to solve not just today's problems, but tomorrow's as well. One of the best illustrations of how DARPA works is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. About 10 years ago, DARPA began heavy investments into something called mRNA vaccines. mRNA vaccines are nearly a household word today, but at the time, they were much more obscure, and DARPA's investments were based on the insight of individual program managers who anticipated their need for both military and public health missions. The research is now playing a leading and catalytic role in today's fight against COVID-19. In typical DARPA fashion, the agency made significant investments in technology years before it was known to be needed, leading to high-impact capabilities related to prevention, diagnostics, and treatment that have helped to mitigate the current crisis. From vaccines and diagnostics to defensive and offensive hypersonic technologies, state-of-the-art artificial intelligence, quantum information systems, microelectronics, sophisticated cyber solutions, inexpensive space-based capabilities, supply chain robustness and resilience, and much more, DARPA has forged new paths and continues to deliver on our mission. The culture is strong, it persists. You have an agency completely focused on the mission. I look forward to working with the members of this subcommittee and others in Congress to ensure the security and resilience of our nation. I'll be most pleased to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Highnam. I'll now recognize the Commanding General of the Army Combat Capabilities Development Command, General George, for 5 minutes.
Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Ernst, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for your support and your commitment to the Army's soldiers, families, and our civilians. I appreciate the opportunity to testify alongside my DoD S&T partners, Dr. Highnam, General Pringle, and Admiral Selby. The mission of the United States Army's Combat Capabilities Development Command, known as DEVCOM, as a part of the larger Army Futures Command, enables the delivery of the Army's modernization priorities through advancing science, technology, and engineering. Futures Command leads the persistent modernization of the Army and has created unity of effort to develop and deliver capabilities. Under the unified leadership of Futures Command, we've evolved the way we characterize our execution of S&T, and we've placed increased emphasis on ensuring a balance of investment across 3 areas. First, technology insertion. This is focused on the delivery of S&T in support of today's signature efforts. Second is transformational capabilities, efforts that will likely transform how we will fight in the future operating environment. This is all made possible by the third, foundational research, executed by my Army Research Lab, which is focused on the realm of the possible, realized in collaboration with our external academic and industry partners. To inform both transformational capabilities and foundational research, DEVCOM executed Futures Command's technology deep dives in support of the Army's research priorities. Along with our government and academic partners and hundreds of participants, we've reviewed the Army's technology focus areas in advanced spaces like quantum, hypersonic flight, convergent manufacturing, autonomy, and synthetic biology. Leveraging this 3-part S&T construct and expanding our definition of success beyond just the transition of technology into programs, one initiative under Army's Futures Command that has changed the way that we pursue technologies is our IGNITE strategy. This strategy broadens and institutionalizes the impact of S&T by having science-shaped concepts and technology-inform requirements. Last year, we established the Virtual Enterprise Collaboration Platform with more than 600 partners across 35 Army organizations, and we led more than 20 workshops to inform how and what we will fight with differently in the future. This has brought together people from all 4 services, 13 partner nations, industry, other government agencies, think tanks, and academic institutions. As further representation of the change implemented in our S&T mission, the Army is expanding our use of soldier-centered design, taking potential solutions from the lab into the dirt. Routine and brutally honest soldier feedback is incredibly important to make sure we deliver what is needed. In 2021, we'll conduct more than 200 experiments, or what we call soldier touchpoints. We leverage this feedback to inform an agile development process where we're able to modify efforts, re-engineer products, realize cost savings, and cut the time it takes to deliver soldiers' capabilities. Recognizing that the joint warfighter will need integrated capabilities that operate at machine speed to win on the hyperactive battlefields of the future, in 2020, the Army initiated our premier experimentation event, Project Convergence. This is where we went from concept to experimentation and demonstration in under 8 months. This year, for Project Convergence 21, we'll expand participation and focus on joint interoperability with our DoD partners and an Indo-PACOM vignette. DEVCOM is working alongside more than 75 industry partners on our technology scheduled to be in this year's event. To support Project Convergence, we've recently stood up the Joint Systems Integration Lab, or the JSIL, where on 8 April we hosted all 3 service chiefs. The JSIL provides lab-based risk reduction and ultimately will enable Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2. All this is only possible with a continued emphasis on talent management and the future of work. We continue to explore new ways to attract and retain talent that we need to remain effective and competitive. And to do so, we're leveraging our existing network. DevCom has regional research hubs co-located with our strategic partners across the nation, centered in regions with existing innovation networks like Boston, Playa Vista, Chicago, and Austin. Our hubs are positioned to tap into talent where it resides and are tightly linked with outreach and diversity initiatives to work towards our goal of an expert S&T workforce. So in closing, we're optimistic about our ability to shape the future. The authorities that Congress has provided us enhance our ability to enable our world-class talent, pursue lab revitalization, and acquire information technology necessary for the Army's multi-domain transformation. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, General. Admiral Selby, the Chief of Naval Research, is recognized for any opening remarks.
Good afternoon, Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Ernst, and distinguished members of the committee. I thank you for inviting me and my colleagues to be with you today to talk about this, what I think is actually a critical topic at this time. From a science and technology standpoint, we are clearly at an inflection point in history. As you are all well aware, for the first time in several decades, we are facing a near-peer competitor who is basically set on trying to displace us as the world's superpower. We are truly in a race for technological superiority. For 75 years, the Navy and Marine Corps leadership has looked to the Office of Naval Research to maintain that technological advantage and ensure that our sailors and Marines are never in a fair fight. Today, more than ever, technology shapes the battlefield, whether it be on land, in the air, on or under the sea, or in cyberspace, which is why it is absolutely critical that we maintain the technological edge. Having served in the role of Chief of Naval Research now for just under a year, I'm focusing the Naval Research Enterprise, or NRE, on 4 distinct areas to do just that: people, products, processes, and partnerships. The NRE, which consists of the Office of Naval Research, the Naval Research Laboratory, ONR Global, and PMR 51, has an amazing workforce of nearly 4,000 dedicated scientists, engineers, contracts, legal, and financial specialists, and military members. Like everyone, my workforce was affected over the past year by the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'd like to publicly thank them for their inspiring flexibility and commitment to their work. As we look to the world after COVID, I'm looking to focus the workforce on modernizing the NRE talent management system through diversity, employee satisfaction, and succession planning. Central to this effort is my firm commitment to increasing awareness of the naval science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM programs, particularly to improve engagements with our historically Black colleges and universities and minority-serving institutions. The shortage of people interested in STEM careers today is a matter of national security, and the next generation of STEM professionals who will lead America needs to reflect American society. Quite simply, we have to get our kids from all locations and demographics interested in STEM today, or we will be unprepared as a nation to face the challenges of tomorrow. To remain relevant, the NRE must continue to provide capabilities to the fleet and Marine forces. Recently, we've had success in delivering capabilities in directed energy, unmanned systems, artificial intelligence and machine learning, electromagnetic warfare, and autonomy. Specific examples among many game-changing capabilities emerging for our fleet and Marine forces include the solid-state laser technology maturation prototype, which is installed on USS Portland, as well as the delivery of Seahawk and Sea Hunter unmanned surface vessels. In many cases, the successes we have in providing products today is the direct result of early-stage research conducted 10 or 20 years ago. As a sole dedicated naval investor in basic research, ONR will continue to sponsor nascent research in areas such as artificial intelligence, digital engineering, quantum, computing, biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, long-range precision fires, expeditionary energy, and undersea warfare. Yes, I also recognize that, unlike many years ago, the preponderance of technology investment today comes from the private sector and not from the government. Through our manufacturing technology and small business innovation research efforts, they've been and continue to consistently be successful. We also need to look to new avenues for engaging across the spectrum of industry to ensure we are penetrating with the private sector to the best ideas. For this reason, I view NavalX and tech bridges as absolutely critical capabilities for connecting the Navy and Marine Corps across the innovation pipeline. Similarly, within ONR, we need to continue to deliver near-term solutions to emerging fleet Marine Corps requirements, specifically in areas of experimentation. For example, the Marine Corps just completed the Naval Integration in Contested Environments Advanced Naval Technology Experiment, where several ONR technologies were demonstrated in an operationally relevant environment at Camp Lejeune a couple weeks ago. Also, at this very moment, ONR and the fleet are evaluating some 30 new technologies as part of an integrated Battle Problem 21 exercise off the coast of Southern California. By providing our warfighters with opportunity to employ novel technologies, we provide them with the opportunity to give direct feedback to the developers and to begin to develop appropriate concepts and doctrine. From a partnership perspective, I'm happy to say, on the domestic front, from the organizations around this table and others across DoD and government, we're completely aligned and in sync. Internationally, as I'm dual hat as the Chief of Naval Research and the Senior National Naval Representative, I'm committed to ensuring that our international allies continue to see the United States as the partner of choice for research development investments. Today, over 2/3 of global R&D investment are outside the United States, making it absolutely critical that we maintain awareness of the state of research for both partners and potential adversaries alike. Fortunately, the small and agile ONR Global team is equipped to do just that through discovering emerging research around the world, helping potential partners navigate the complex U.S. R&D ecosystem, and promoting transparency and building trust. Again, it's an honor to be with you here today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Admiral. And now, General Pringle, the commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, will be recognized for opening remarks.
Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Ernst, and distinguished members of this subcommittee, thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. I am honored here to join my colleagues here today. The Department of the Air Force has a comprehensive technology portfolio, deep scientist and engineer bench, and world-class facilities that accelerate development of innovative technologies for airmen and guardians. I am more than confident in our team, but nonetheless, we remain clear-eyed about the challenges ahead. With the complexity of an evolving landscape, as we've described here today, the Air Force Research Lab remains united as one lab supporting two services, both the Air Force and the Space Force, as we address these challenges. I'd like to start by highlighting our substantial efforts to support the nation's response to COVID-19, which ensured the timely increase in domestic production of personal protective equipment and mitigated damage to the defense industrial base. Numerous researchers responded to the call by evaluating decontamination technologies for the Air Force fleet, building computational models to support commanders, and designing new transport systems for an air-evacuated COVID patients. Even while responding to COVID, our S&T community never ceased in their efforts to develop transformational capabilities in line with our 2030 strategy. In fact, AFRL established a new Transformational Capabilities Office to develop a pipeline of multidisciplinary programs that aim to grow into game-changing capabilities called Vanguards. Vanguards represent a new model for accelerating the transition of S&T successes across the Valley of Death, and we look forward to results from these Vanguards in the near future. Still more opportunities exist in the space domain. Though we have long recognized the importance of space superiority, AFRL has taken new steps to demonstrate its commitment to both the Air Force and Space Force as independent services. As always, we will continue to encourage problem solving across multiple domains, multiple disciplines, and actively develop cross-cutting solutions. The commercial space sector has also energized a number of public-private partnerships and CRADAs with companies looking to use our facilities and leverage our expertise, resulting in mutually beneficial endeavors. In fiscal year 2021, AFRL strengthened its partnerships by standing up a new strategic partnering office, as well as bolstering our relationship with non-traditional companies. Leading in this area, AFWERX awarded contracts worth over $700 million to 1,400 small businesses, with over 75% of the recipients being new partners to the DAF. We're excited to access so many new sources of innovation. To better leverage extramural research advancements, our team works closely with academic institutions across the nation to shape our research and grow a larger, highly talented pool of U.S. citizens skilled in tech areas we need. Altogether, these robust networks of partnerships, which include 23 international allies, NATO, and Five Eyes partners, bring a wealth of knowledge and domain-specific expertise to ensure we stay on the cutting edge of research. To build the best team, AFRL developed a new approach to human capital that incorporates industry best practices and seamlessly integrates the human capital lifecycle. We greatly appreciate the numerous authorities that Congress has provided to recruit, hire, and retain top talent. In particular, the Direct Hire Authority enabled the use of executive headhunter firms for hard-to-fill positions, such as the Enhanced Pay Authority, which we have fully employed. Every day, we seek opportunities to achieve future operational dominance through investment in relevant scientific areas, such as artificial intelligence, autonomy, biotech, cyber, quantum-directed energy, microelectronics, and hypersonics. Horizon scanning enables us to invest in ways that avoid duplication and build complementary efforts with our sister services, DARPA, and others. Despite COVID-19, we had an exceptional year responding to both emergent and enduring technology needs while pushing the leading edge of science. I'd be happy to provide more details. Above all, we have a workforce that is truly special, driven by a tireless devotion to learning difficult specialties and applying expertise and creativity to novel problems. Thank you for your strong support of the Air Force and Space Force S&T, the authorities that you have provided, and this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, General, and thank you to everyone for your testimony. So before we begin questions, let me remind everybody how we're going to proceed here with the remote participants. We do have some. I want to let everyone know how things are going to run. So since this is impossible to know exactly when our colleagues who will be joining remotely arrive, we're not going to be following what's called the standard early bird timing rule. Instead, we'll handle the order of questions by seniority, alternating sides until we've gone through everyone. And once we reach the end, if there's anybody that's missed, we'll go back and start at the top again until everybody's had a turn. With that, I'm going to begin our 5-minute round of questions. So this is for all the witnesses. I want to talk about semiconductors for a moment. In last year's NDAA, we authorized the CHIPS for America Act. And I'm currently working with colleagues to ensure we can provide the funding necessary to address current supply chain vulnerabilities. Can you speak to why semiconductors and microelectronics are important for our weapon systems and for our national security?
Chairman, thank you for the question. I'll start the team down here. So first of all, semiconductors are in nearly every piece of kit that we field to our soldiers in our formations. And we have part of our command that looks at the integrity and the vulnerabilities of semiconductors as a part of the systems that we field. We certainly recognize that the supply chain is at risk, and that we've got to be very careful to know the origin of the semiconductors that are going into our critical capabilities, especially as we get into things like AI and machine learning. The speed of our systems and the decision algorithms that we use have got to be reliable and have got to move fast.
I'll just continue that. So clearly, semiconductors are in all of our, microelectronics for our radar systems, our communication systems, our high-performance computing systems for AI and all the things we're trying to do. As you're all well aware, majority of that has been offshored over the last several decades. So it is a critical concern that there is obviously a vulnerability there for the supply chain, as well as potential vulnerabilities for other aspects of what can be done to the electronics when it's offshore. And so I think we're all working together to try to combat that, to come up with strategies. But the things that Hill has done over the years to help us with that is going to be critical to making this effective.
Do any of the labs help manufacturers or help develop technology that could help a U.S. company, let's say Intel, lead to developing, let's say, a 5-nanometer chip, or even beyond that, 3 or 1 nanometer? I mean, there's a path to get there. Do any of the labs work specifically on developing that technology?
Naval Research Lab, for instance, is doing a lot of work now, but just historically, gallium nitride, what's in your phone and your flat screen TV was technology developed with others, but Naval Research Lab played a pivotal role in that. And Naval Research Lab today is doing additional work on future concepts. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, and the Army Research Lab is also looking at the materials as a part of the conductor business.
General Pringle?
Thank you, Chairman. There are 3 things that I'd like to add here. First is that we are looking to adopt commercial advances and validate the processes that they're using in the microelectronics chips area, because we need to ensure that what we are getting is adhering to the secure processes that we need. We're also looking to give them researchers tools, and we're working on a prototype for lithography that will meet our very unique military needs and addresses a low volume production capability, and we're hoping to see that come to fruition this year. And thirdly, and not least importantly, is developing a skilled workforce, and all of us are working together on developing the capabilities in our teams so that we can be good consumers of the microelectronics and knowing what we're getting. Thank you.
Dr. Highnam? Thank you, Doctor. I now recognize Ranking Member Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, to the witnesses, thank you very, very much for being here and testifying. And Dr. Highnam, I appreciate our conversation a few days ago and really appreciated the insights that you were able to provide. The Department of Defense has developed a top 10 list of modernization priorities that represent technology focus areas from the National Defense Strategy, and they include artificial intelligence, biotechnology, autonomy, cyber, directed energy, fully networked command, control, and communications, microelectronics, quantum science, hypersonics, space, and lastly, 5G. How do you assess, Dr. Highnam, the United States standing amongst our global competition to develop, adopt, and deploy these technologies for national security, especially in light of significant commercial sector investments and progress in development of emerging technologies? Yeah, and what specific recommendations then do you have for actions in policy programs or organizational reform that this committee or the DoD should pursue to improve the department's ability to develop, adopt, and deploy these types of technologies for national security? Thank you. Great. Yes, thank you. And thank you for working so well and collaborating together. That is very important as well. And Major General George, there's a former Chinese chairman that remarked that China would implement the medium and long-term program for science and technology development to make China an innovative country and enhance national strength. And China does aim to be the world's science and technology leader by the year 2050. And what do you see as the biggest challenges related to ensuring a sufficient and competitive supply of S&T talent in the United States?
Senator, I would start by saying I think you're spot on that our people are the foundation and the bedrock of our future success. And for us, it's creating a flow of STEM, that's sustainable STEM personnel from K through 12 right now, that's sustainable through the future. And so it's a whole of government, a whole of nation issue that we have to wrestle with to put the right policies and for us to have the right authorities to work with our universities to pull in expertise. But it's that flow of STEM that I think is the largest single factor for our future success, to have the talent in the right place and in the right competencies.
And are there discussions then openly with universities or colleges or other areas of academia where you're letting them know maybe what we need as a military so that you can work on program development, whether it's in K through 12 or at our universities?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we've got a program with a couple of universities in North Carolina as well as Tennessee that will work directly with our soldiers to help establish what are the problems, and then as a result of that, we're informing our universities on the problem sets that we actually have at the soldier and formation level.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I now recognize Senator Kane for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Kelly and Ranking Member Ernst, and thanks to our witnesses. General George, last year the DoD launched something called Project Pele, and that was to design, build, and demonstrate a prototype mobile nuclear reactor that's intended to be safe, avoid concerns associated with existing nuclear reactors, and revolutionize how the military services deploy and operate, possibly eliminating the need to take, energy by fuel trucks back and forth to forward deployed bases. Could you give us some information about the status of Project Pele, and at what point in the sort of planning and development of this might the Army contemplate incorporating a microreactor into its operations?
Senator, I know from a conceptual perspective, how we operate in the future, that we haven't been looking at how we fight differently with that type of capability. So if I can take a question for the record, to get you an update.
Excellent. Be happy for that. Thank you, General. General Pringle, I chair the Readiness Subcommittee, which is sort of acquisitions and installations and then readiness metrics. One of the areas that I oversee is through that subcommittee is the military construction budget. My observation has been that every military base has a really strong advocacy for its MILCON projects, not only through chain of command, but usually there's a surrounding community that advocates strongly. And I've wondered sometimes whether there is sufficient advocacy power behind not our bases, but public shipyards, armories, DoD research labs. What's your assessment of the facilities that you oversee in your current position, and are they appropriate for the types of technologies that you're working on, and do we need to pay more attention to them as we work on a MILCON budget?
Senator, this is a great opportunity for me to highlight the authorities that this subcommittee has authorized, and Flex 4 is one that I would like to say thank you for this authority. This has enabled us to make improvements in a variety of lab facilities, and particularly what we've been able to do through Flex 4 is we dedicate at the Air Force Research Lab, all of us dedicate a certain percentage, we dedicate 4% of our total obligation authority toward infrastructure improvements. The way that we employ this is through minor MILCON. It seems to be more conducive to the S&T projects that we are working on and the needs that our bench has. That's a $6 million limit right now for UMMC, and if that were potentially a higher value, that would also be beneficial, but we've been able to leverage it quite a bit for those purposes, and we're very grateful. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. And this is a question really for anyone. We do things in the committee, and I sometimes wonder that, or worry that we don't go back a couple years later and ask ourselves, well, did it work out the way we hoped? Too hot, too cold, just right. Here's one. In 2016, the committee made a number of changes to the Department of Defense to improve acquisition outcomes. One of the changes we made was to split the Office of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics into two undersecretariats, the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering and the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment. 5 years into this, what is your sense of whether that split has had any major impact on how we operate? Did we get it right? Should we contemplate adjusting it? Have we created consequences we didn't foresee at the time? And obviously your candor is appreciated on this.
Senator, I don't have a way of judging how it was before. The relationship that we have with R&E is working well. We have some of our science experts that coordinate and collaborate routinely with their communities of interest. And so I unfortunately don't have a comparison other to use in this case, but it seems to me to be working well as it's currently structured.
Your frame of reference is the current frame.
Exactly.
The comparative past. Any others worked under the past frame of reference to have a point of comparison? Okay. All right, thank you for your answers. And I will submit that first question, just a written question, QFR, just to, to be very precise about it. And I'd love your answer to that, General George. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Senator Kramer is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly and Senator Ernst. Thanks all of you for being here, for your service. Now I know something, General Pringle. Whenever I go to Grand Forks and Colonel Pringle brags about his smarter older sister, I just thought he was guilty of false humility. Now I know he's telling the truth. It's great to, it's great to meet you. But but I'm sure, hopefully he's shared with you some of his experience in Grand Forks and let you know that we have a great relationship. So, Admiral, when you were talking about STEM and specifically targeting, for example, the HBCs, great example of a potential workforce that might have been neglected before, but presents tremendous opportunities both for them and for you. I would say likewise, in the middle of the country, there are a lot of smart people, K through 12 as well as in our universities. I think North Dakota is a good example of that. We have great relationships between our bases and our universities. We have great relationship between our industry partners, the tech parks, and our bases, like frankly in Grand Forks is a good example where the radar at Grand Forks is being used to allow industry to fly UASs without chase ships. That couldn't be possible without that relationship in the middle of the country. So we also have a very good state government that's cooperative and collaborative and really eager, and they've done amazing work making North Dakota the #1 rated UAS-ready state. So we have this middle America that needs to understand that their investments into future technology and that understanding doesn't materialize when all the tech efforts take place on the coasts. So what's the best way to get the military to utilize that great tech environment that we've built up in the middle of the country and specifically in North Dakota? And I'd let any of you answer that question if you have it, but I know that General Pringle has an inside track.
So I'll start if that's okay. So I would say that we have found that in this COVID environment, Zoom, Teams, we can now reach so many more people, and we can use that forum to actually reach into communities we have not traditionally reached into. Now, hopefully, we're going to be able to travel again more, which will be actually nice as well. But I think even when we can travel, we should do hybrid events to try to bring in as many people as we can. Small Business Innovative Research, SBIR, that is a tremendously valuable program. It is very powerful. It allows us to reach into small businesses in places like North Dakota, Iowa, wherever that we just have not done before. A lot of times we get kind of locally centric around our bases. We need to expand that. We need all hands on deck across this country to help us with this problem. It's a team of teams, and wherever they are, we need to go after them.
Excellent. Doctor?
DARPA's been doing outreach events. We were doing them in person. So Nebraska was the first place. We went to Lincoln. We used with the help of the local chamber and the university, great couple of days. Sitting at DARPA, we think everybody knows how to work with DARPA, which is the other side of this. So we begin with working with DARPA as a contact sport, and we're here to help. We explain what we're doing. We explain the different mechanisms that we have available, some of which really are tailored for fast response to small businesses, universities, and so on, who haven't worked with us before, and we're there to help mentor. Most recently, North Carolina, working, again, as you said, as the Admiral said, working with a statewide body to help do that. And I think we have one coming up with Arizona, because we were spoken to by Business Arizona as well. So the same type of thinking. There's a ton of talent. We have to introduce us to them as much as get them to introduce themselves to us.
General?
If I may add, thank you, Senator. Aside from having a brother in one of these great states and leveraging the connections there are authorities that, again, this subcommittee has provided, and it's through Section 244 that enables us to build consortia and to open the doors with universities and industry. So we have modeled some new regional hubs based on what the Army has done with their regions, and we're establishing them in areas where we haven't traditionally been focused. The Midwest is one of them, as well as the Northeast. So I think that will increase some attention to those areas. We're establishing, for example, a Space University Research Initiative and providing money to universities that want to partner with us. This is a $6 million endeavor over 3 years, which really attracts a wide variety of universities and talent. And finally, we have a number of manufacturing institutes across the nation that help us partner with industry. And it's focused on a particular area, that is manufacturing. But as you mentioned, Senator, a lot of talent out there that we can leverage for our S&T purposes. Thank you.
Well, I would love to invite you to Grand Forks and to the University of North Dakota, and perhaps for Colonel Pringle's change of command later this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Senator Warren is going to join us via WebEx and is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the things I've talked about a lot as a member of this committee is the importance of basic and applied research funding. Early stage research is critically important as a foundation for our nation's ability to develop new technology, and it pays off many times down the road. But too often, early stage research can get overlooked. For example, while the total RDT&E budget grew by 51% from fiscal years 2015 through 2020, basic and applied research funding was essentially flat. And the department's FY21 request for S&T funding was actually 0.5% less than it was in the year prior. So my question is to our military officers, and I'm just going to start with a simple yes, no here. Do you all agree that basic and applied research is critically important to our technological advantage? And let me just start with you, General George.
Senator, yes.
Good. Admiral Shelby?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Good. Thank you, Admiral Selby. And General Pringle?
Senator, yes, emphatically so.
Emphatically so. I like that even better. Thank you. University affiliated research centers, or UARCs, play a pivotal role in basic and applied research. Now, I can't ask the Air Force my next question because the Air Force doesn't have UARCs. So, General George and Admiral Selby, do you agree that UARCs provide the Army and the Navy with a good return on investment and are critically important to your service's R&D goals?
Senator, yes, and I just, if I can elaborate, MIT Institute for Soldier Nanotechnology is a great ecosystem for us that combines soldiers and our academic institution and has promising outcomes.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And ma'am, from the Navy, I'm sure you're well aware, we have 5 UARCs. They all have some very unique capabilities. They support us from everything from R&D through in-service support of our sailors and Marines across the fleet. So they are critically important to our success as a force.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. I hope our Air Force witness heard that. In addition to helping accelerate our research and development goals, UARCs also play an essential role in the broader economy and in the defense industrial base. Since 2002, you raised the research at MIT. The Institute for Soldier Nanotechnologies, or ISN, has led to the creation of 28 successful small businesses. That's 28 new businesses that are hiring workers right here in America. Unfortunately, the ISN has seen its funding decrease from $9.5 million in 2014 to $4.4 million in 2021, and will potentially drop further to $3.9 million in 2022. So, General George, briefly, can you tell me why the Army has been steadily cutting funding to the ISN?
Senator, the Army has been equally funding at this point across the 4 UARCs that we have. And so it's a leveling of the resources that go to each of the UARCs. We have one in California and one in Georgia Institute of Technology as well. And so it's a part of the balance as we look for all innovative approaches and the ecosystem that we have with our universities.
Well, I understand you're balancing, but my understanding is you're cutting ISN funding overall. And look, I get it. You need to make difficult choices in your budgets. But I have 2 concerns. And one, that the Army is neglecting an important research area in nanotechnology while it's chasing other priorities. But as you know, research at the ISN has directly contributed to each of the Army's 6 modernization priorities. And then second, basic and applied research more broadly is the seed corn of our technological advantage. If the department fails to properly tend to this field, we will find ourselves with nothing to harvest, far behind our competitors on the technologies of the future, technologies that we don't even know about today. So I'm going to continue to push for DOD to fund more on this because I think it's important. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. And Senator Blackburn via WebEx is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you all for being with us today. General George, I want to come to you. I know that you're aware that University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt are the first Pathfinder partnership for the Army Futures Command. And we fully appreciate, we know what that means to our state, and we appreciate that these academic researchers get to interact with the fabulous troops at the 101st Airborne and also the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment there at Fort Campbell. And they are working on next generation technologies and end user insight. And this is a solid partnership. So what I'd like to ask you for the record is, what are the Army's biggest lessons learned from implementing this program? How could these lessons be used to inform future partnerships for emerging technologies? And then how could you take this Pathfinder model and have it inform the efforts of the services and DoD more generally?
Senator, thank you for that. So the Catalyst Pathfinder program, as you well know, is really in its infancy. We've got a great start, especially with Vanderbilt and, as you mentioned, the 101st Airborne. And so I think what we've got to do is watch to see how the interaction between our soldiers and the academic institution, the scientists there, plays out. And one of the things that we're doing is ensuring that one of our research leaders from the Army Research Lab is partnered there as well. And so, as you just described, we have got to learn from how this works and what the outcomes are. So we're going to be looking for the outcomes to see if there are valued solutions that are proposed that could feed into Army priorities, and certainly then look to see if this is some program that we'd like to expand.
Okay, do you feel like you're fully maximizing the partnerships that you have in play now?
With the Catalyst Pathfinder partnerships, like I said, I think we've got to do some learning still. We're further along with the partnerships in Tennessee. And
so you have room to grow with those?
Yes, I do believe we do.
Okay. All right. Let me talk to you a little bit about workforce and workforce development, because we're always focused on great power competition, China and Russia. And we know that workforce is really crucial to develop and implement some of these emerging technologies. And an important part of this effort for DoD and commercial industry is to create robust and competitive hiring pipelines for STEM professionals. And what I'd like for you to touch on is what would be the threat to our warfighters if we were to lose the advantage we have now in AI. And I included a provision in last year's NDAA authorizing the direct hiring of AI professionals. And so I'd like for you to touch on how that direct hiring affects or supports the work that you're doing.
Senator, for the Army, we are liberally using the direct hiring authority, and it has been a very powerful tool for us to bring in talent at the speed that we need it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that as we look at these emerging technologies, this is going to be so important for us. One other question I'd love to ask you as we talk about AI talent and the federal workforce and the military, what role do you see for the National Guard and our reserve components playing in this endeavor to increase this talent pool?
Senator, we're partnered with the 75th Innovation Command, which is a reserve command with Army Futures Command, and they've been very helpful bringing expertise into every conversation we have, and in particular, since we have them and our AI Integration Center in the same command under Futures Command, it's just increased the collaboration that we have.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I'm going to go to the next round of questions. And there's been a lot of discussion here in D.C. lately about infrastructure spending. And how do you, all of you, well, I guess this question is probably not suited for DARPA because it's about testing infrastructure. So for the Admiral and the two generals, how do you work to maintain world-class research and testing infrastructure? For example, places like the Yuma Proving Ground in Arizona, or Fort Huachuca's Electronic Proving Ground, or Pax River, where I used to fly in the test range, White Sands Missile Range, Nevada Test Range. I mean, how do you, work to maintain that infrastructure in those places and places like them?
I'll start. So, as you're aware, sir, we have many warfare centers across the Navy. Carter Rock, Dahlgren, all those are different warfare centers. We do a phenomenal amount of testing at all of those centers across the country. You're right. The budgets are pressurized right now, but General Pringle mentioned some of the special authorities here, so we're able to use some of our S&T money to do some of the, MinCon, so minor MilCon. That gets after some of it. When we do have bigger projects that do come along, and they don't come along all the time, but when they do, we have to really work hard to get them prioritized on the list. That's a challenge because obviously the Navy, Marine Corps have got big bills, but when you can show the actual benefit of what we're doing for the warfighter that's relevant, because if you don't do this testing or this S&T work in a laboratory, we won't have the capability. That sells, and we're able to get these things approved. Again, it's not every year. Sometimes we have to wait a few years. But those laboratories are absolutely critical to our ability to maintain our warfighters to be ready for to deter and, if required, to fight.
Senator, for Yuma, you mentioned specifically we've had great success. Even during COVID, we had testers at Yuma that were able to conduct our experiments and videotape to our engineers who were sitting in Picatinny, New Jersey, so that we could keep our projects on track during COVID. So the more we use our test centers, the better off they're going to be, because that's how they receive their resources, and then we're able to resource through our projects increases in modernizing their capabilities as well.
Chairman, the two examples I'd like to provide from a departmental standpoint, Department of the Air Force, is we have a different setup where the Air Force Test Center oversees our test infrastructure. However, from an S&T standpoint, we partner with them, and frankly, we embed some of our scientists and engineers at those locations to really get the benefit of cutting-edge science to ensure that it's going to the right test. So whether it's Edwards or just on Monday, I was at Arnold Air Force Base and looking at the test infrastructure there. We get a synergy between looking at how we can improve our S&T infrastructure to support that mutually beneficial goal.
General Pringle, is there anything that this committee could do to help build the research and testing infrastructure beyond what you currently have? Build it out to, and this question is really for all of you. I mean, anything else that you need, what could our subcommittee do to provide that?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that the authorities that we have are really great, and we've used them to the greatest extent possible. The Flex 4, we really appreciate. If you were thinking about potentially an increase to the ceiling on minor MilCon, that might be helpful. It's set at $6 million right now, but other than that, I very much appreciate the authorities we've been given.
Yeah, I would say, sir, just continued support for S&T across the board, is what we need to continue to do the great work we're all doing at these laboratories.
I just, for the Army, the test community is responsive to the Army's Futures Command for prioritization, but they're not actually resourced through the same mechanisms that we resource our research and development community. So again, we have a great partnership. The more that we work with them, I think the better off they will be as well.
Thank you. And Senator Shaheen is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for missing the testimony, but I really I was up in a small business hearing where one of the topics that came up was the SBIR program. And knowing that you're talking about innovation and technology, I thought it would be important to raise the issue here in this hearing to hear what you all think about the importance of the SBIR program, what you have seen, and whether it should continue and be reauthorized. So I don't know who would like to start with answering that.
Senator, I'd like to take that. Heather Pringle from Air Force Research Lab. We see the value of small business innovative research, and we have fully embraced its use, especially in the last year, and we've done some really unique things with our program. First of all, we had it join our AFWorks team, and so we have one-stop shopping for innovation, and what they're doing is blowing the doors off of partnering with small businesses and trying to make it more accessible and lower the barriers to entry to the Department of Defense. So if you hear the word AFWorks, then that's makes it easier. And in fact, if you look at our numbers from the last year, we awarded over 2,000 contracts to small businesses, and 75% of those contracts were to new recipients or new partners with the Department of the Air Force. And what that does is it provides us with a new source of innovation and only benefits our ability to provide better S&T.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add, so we've done something similar, and we've also kind of broadened our solicitations so they weren't too specific. We made them less specific. We found we got many, many new applicants we've not seen before, and we've also used virtual to actually expand our reach. So we've been having virtual, meetings and bringing in hundreds, where before you might get dozens. So we've gotten many, many more solicitations. We've shortened the required inputs, sped up the contracting cycle to get the money out the door faster to keep these companies energized. They are critical to our success as a nation, no question about it.
Great. Thank you.
Senator, I just echo what my partners here said. And in the Army, at the Army Futures Command, they've also taken an innovative look through Army Applications Lab, very much like AFWorks, to reach some small businesses that previously we have not been able to get to.
That's great. Thank you. Anything else, Dr. Highnam?
Thank you for the question. We make extensive use of the SBIR, STTR authorities. We also, looking at our numbers, we spend about 18% of our annual budget with small businesses overall. And so that's coming in competitively, whether through the SBIR, TTR programs, or coming in as competitors on the regular programs. If I may, there's one extension that we've taken, looking at how to protect some of these small businesses as they seek to grow in terms of the sources of capital that they pull on. And we have launched something called the Embedded Entrepreneur Initiative. Initially a pilot of 30 companies. In microelectronics and biotechnology, over 2 years. The objective was to have them take US venture funds. Now we're scaling that up to 150.
Great. That's great. Thank you all very much. Mr. Chairman, we reauthorized the SBIR program through the NDAA Act in 2017 for 5 years. It is set to expire again in 2022, so I would argue that this is something that we should get refocused on and think about how we get it reauthorized. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator, and I recognize Senator Ernst for 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. And I would agree with Senator Shaheen. I think it is really important that we work in that area together. And General Pringle, those small businesses are critical to our defense industry, and they are disadvantaged. And so, just as Senator Shaheen was pointing out, we really do need support for those businesses to make sure that they are able to tap into that network and, of course, be able to share their developments with our defense industry. So they can be very, very helpful in our modernization efforts. And again, if you would outline some of those major barriers, and are there for the small businesses tapping into DoD and acquisitions, and as well, what can we do differently on top of programs that are already being offered? Are there other ways that we can leverage these small businesses?
Thank you for the question. So as you mentioned, the small businesses are really vital to increasing our sources of innovation, and in addition to making it more accessible for them to partner with the government and with DoD, we've set up a series of phases where they can graduate from phase 1 to phase 2, and we've been trying to partner them with warfighters so that they look at the application of what they're doing sooner than what they might have. And we're also looking at opportunities for them to get some venture capital and to see if maybe they can raise some funds on their side. And through some of those efforts, these businesses and venture capital have been able to extend the DoD's investment in these small businesses, and we've been seeing an increase in the return on investment. So not only by the DoD investing in them, but them getting the partnership funding that they're able to grow and expand.
Thank you. I think, yes, Admiral, please.
If I could just add, so what we've done is we've got Naval X, much like AFWorks. We use that in addition to these tech bridges we set up around the country to actually conduct training. So we actually do training to teach companies how to actually work with the government, because a lot of them have no idea. So we're reaching out to kind of non-traditional businesses, and then we're providing training so they understand. It's available to anybody, so it's a level playing ground. But we let them know here's how you do business. Here's how you fill out the forms. Here's what you have to do. Here's who you have to talk to. So we train them.
That's exceptional. And do you receive a large turnout and participation?
Yes, ma'am. And when we do it virtually, even more. So that's what's really opened the doors here, because the virtual presence has actually allowed us to expand this far beyond what we would do if it was just in person.
Oh, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. And while we're with you, Admiral Selby, when we spoke yesterday, you listed AI as a technology high priority area, and you also mentioned autonomous and unmanned, quantum, hypersonics, 5G, and biotech as areas for study and application. All very important. All of these areas are showing some tremendous promise for application and advantages in our war fighting. Can you go ahead and describe for us the critical factors needed from Congress to ensure that these technologies are brought to fruition?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that this century is going to be basically ruled by whoever can make the decisions faster and more accurately than the adversary. It doesn't have to be right all the time, but it has to be right more often than they are. And AI, machine learning is going to be what will enable that for us. So we have got to continue to conduct the research in those areas. We have to continue to do experimentation in those areas. We have to get the warfighters engaged to actually provide their input early. That's what we're doing right now in San Diego with this integrated battle problem. We've got systems off the coast right now, unmanned systems that are involved in a realistic battle scenario, and we're collecting that information. That'll go back in the laboratory to do additional research. So the funding that you provide, the S&T funding, is going to enable that.
Fantastic. And I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Peters is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of you for your testimony here today and for the work that you do every day for us. Incredibly exciting area that you're in, and one that changes on an hourly basis. It's about really highly dynamic, so thank you for keeping up on all of that. Actually, I'll pick up on the questions from Senator Ernst related to AI and thinking about AI, but also in relation to cyber security. And Dr. Highnam, you mentioned in your written testimony in your work identifying cyber vulnerabilities and attributing malicious actors to specific individuals. And as I'm a chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, in fact, we just had a detailed briefing on the solar winds attack today, and we've had a hearing on that and dealing with cyber threats broadly across the board. And then Admiral Shelby's just talking about the innovation with AI, and this is the next big thing that will transform warfare and transform our societies. I want to talk about how you put the two together and the fact that all vulnerabilities of AI through cyber vulnerabilities. And my question is, how concerned are you about the possibility of malicious actors co-opting some of our AI infrastructure to actually manipulate the algorithms that are the heart of all of that to produce inaccurate feedback? And if you have inaccurate feedback, you have really bad decisions. So talk to me a little bit about what you see and what keeps you up at night in that area.
AI is a technology that runs on computers. So, as you say, computers help us make bad decisions faster.
Yeah.
I think that was the line. So when we talk about AI technologies, we're building on decades of work in signal processing and decision-making by machine. And what these AI technologies are doing, as we see them, is adding speed and flexibility where we didn't actually know a physics solution, a closed solution that we could code in absolutely, or rules. It had to be learned. So many opportunities then for malicious actors to be involved. One of the undergraduate student party tricks is to take a trained computer vision system, put a sticker on it, and this is changing a stop sign into a reported stop sign from a road into a 40-mile-per-hour sign.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right. So these are party tricks. This is to the point about attack surface, which you're talking to. We've expanded it by adding these additional capabilities. So DARPA has a lot of work going on in that space, looking at the challenges of poison data sets for training, the challenges when someone has access to your model or knows the model that you're using, or has conventional access, conventional cyber attack access to the computer, again, which it's running on, or computers, or the sensors that it's running on, to cause a thing to happen that you don't want. A lot of work underway, defensive work at DARPA against this. And then if you extend it up a little bit, you get into information operations and media forensics and deepfakes in another sense. For us, this is a continuous spectrum, and we're involved in many programs, research programs across that space.
Yeah, critical. Well, good. I'd love to talk to you more about that at some point.
Love to.
Like that, General George, welcome. And I deal with one of your subordinate commands on a regular basis, GVSC, and just outside of Detroit, that does amazing R&D work for the Department of the Army. I know you already know that, but I'll give you another plug for them. The men and women there are truly exceptional, and we're looking for them to design the next generation combat vehicle, which is some pretty exciting stuff. But my question for you is, I just recently got back from a visit to Yuma Proving Grounds in Arizona to see firsthand some of the work that you're doing with drones and counter drones. A threat on the battle space, but a threat to the Homeland Security as well for that hat as well, where you've got these very small drones and swarms, potential swarms of those, and very difficult to defend against. And as active in the battlefield, we see what Azerbaijan has done with these types of weapons as well. That's really starting to change our thinking about how we deal with them. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that work that you're doing, what's happening at the Yuma Proving Ground, but where do you foresee that going? What are the major challenges that you face? How can we help here in Congress to further support your efforts to make sure we can develop the kinds of countermeasures necessary to keep our warfighters safe, but also our civilians here in the homeland?
Sure. The work that's going on, Senator, at UM is actually under the Joint Counter-UAS Office. It's led by the Army in this case. And so they're looking at a lot of commercially available things ready today. And we've got to learn how to use them in the hands of our soldiers in formations. So it's a combination of the technology and the formations and you know, the concept and the doctrine on how they're used. Inside of our labs, we're providing a great deal of technology that feeds into those systems that will help either with, you know, an RF track, sensing, and then detecting, and AI actually helps to engage nearly automatically. So a lot of great work, and as you said, the Ground Vehicle System Center in Detroit is leading for our protection of our platforms, and certainly is following along with the Joint Counter-UAS Office.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you. Thanks for the work you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. I just want to ask one more question to all of you. If there's anything you felt we should have asked, anything you need to make sure that our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, you know, have the best technology in the world. I mean, what do you need from the United States Congress so you can do the best job you possibly can?
I'll start with just three quick things, Mr. Chairman. One is, of course, continued resourcing with predictable resources. The second is the authorities that you've given us, keep them coming because we use them. They help us. They help us in our laboratories with our people and our infrastructure. And the third, frankly, is patience. To allow us to develop and look into the future at the technologies that just aren't incremental improvements, but are transformational. And so the resources that we want to use are to get the transformational capabilities, you know, out beyond the next 10 to 15 years.
Admiral.
I would say that continued support in the ST realm is really important. Senator Warren said it, but, you know, sometimes it's hard to kind of explain what you do in the 6.1 and 6.2 world, but what we're trying to do is develop knowledge, technology, and people that have the insight, and that is critical to furthering our capabilities in the science and technology world that will one day become capability. So continue to support that, and I'd say in addition to the existing authorities that we already have, the small business innovative research is critical to having that continue for our success.
Dr. Highnam.
First, again, echoing the support, direct hiring authorities are very important for DARPA, among other support that you provide. We move quickly, and that's key to doing that. Second, as seen with our partners here, it didn't come up in detail, but we make extensive use of and work with them. They say exchange prisoners. Their people come work at DARPA for tours, our people go there. We use the testing infrastructure, use the subject matter expertise. It's deep in these places that we don't have because we're, by design, DARPA people, myself included, are ephemeral. We do a tour, we leave. But these folk have hypersonics expertise in Eglin that's been there, that's been developing in one place for decades. So it's enormously important. So we need those strong partners. And third, a newer one perhaps, there is an increasing emphasis on supply chains. We talked briefly about microelectronics when we spoke sometime in the last week. We talked a little bit about medications and what that's meant through COVID, and the work that we've been doing through battlefield medicine. For example, medicines in austere conditions, now bringing that back to the U.S. And this is, for example, there are several small companies that we've helped to foster and create working in that area. But then beyond that, chemicals. We talked about microelectronics and sand to systems. At the beginning of that whole process, there are basic chemicals. When we talk about visors or protective gear for biosuits, where do these specialized chemicals come from? Too often, not here. So we're very interested in this as a manufacturing, almost as a problem, but really a supply chain in general. And the fact that DARPA is spending much of its time thinking about how to secure supply chain issues is time we're not spending on other things. So we have to do it, and your support and recognition of that would be much valued.
Thank you, Doctor. And General Pringle, final word.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I echo and support everything that my colleagues here today have mentioned, and just would add a couple things. First, as we build the A-team to meet the challenges of the future, we don't know what the threat will be, and so extending our partnerships wide is really important. So continue the authorities that help us build strong consortia. We have to balance the ability to partner with the ability to protect and to build a critical U.S. skilled tech workforce. And so that's another balance that we will need to make going forward. In addition, the authorities that you provide to give us greater access to tools and infrastructure, I think are very, very helpful, and particularly in the digital realm. So the one thing that's going to help us go faster in the future is that digital connectivity and digital infrastructure that underpins it all. So really thank the committee for all their support of S&T and the authorities that you have provided.
Well, thank you. Thanks to all our witnesses for participating. This was very valuable and an important hearing, and look forward to working with everybody in the future. And this hearing is adjourned.